It's got a wingspan of over 6 feet, but it still weighs less than a pound.
Mechanical birds, aluminum snakes, dragonfly helicopters that sound like buzzing bees, remote-controlled Manta Rays. They may look like toys, but they are incredible robots that may change the world. Hi, my name is Joe Penna, and join me as I explore the world of mechanicals on Exploration Earth 2050.
Hi, I'm Joe Penna, and welcome to Earth 2050. In the last few years, there have been countless advances in technology. I even find it hard to keep up, and I'm a geek who loves his new gadgets. Some of these changes have a surprising thing in common, though. Designers are helping to build the future by turning to the past. They're going back to nature for inspiration.
Nature has a bunch of great plans. In nature, the winners eat the losers. The least little animal is a winner in a basketball bracket with trillions of teams. Everything that is alive today is a champion design because it has won for 3.5 billion years. It's like cheating by copying nature.
Among the robots inspired by nature are these little fellas. They're called quadrotors, and they could affect everything from farming to construction to entertainment. Yes, these guys are little, but their impact on the future could be huge. At first glance, these robots, which weigh just a few ounces, resemble dragonflies, but no dragonfly can do this. Or this.
What we're seeing is robots that are able to take off in the third dimension. So not only are they mobile, but they're able to go up and down, they're able to fly.
Quadrotors got their name from what turns out to be an obvious reason. Each device is a platform equipped with 4 separate rotors, one at each corner.
So each rotor spins independently. Each rotor is controlled by an independently controlled motor. And there's a whole bunch of electronics that makes that happen.
It's a complicated little robot. An incredible 600 commands are sent from the sensors to the motors every second. These allow each quadrotor, each separate robot, to make adjustments while in flight, which allows them to work together as a team.
This is where robots are sometimes capable of superhuman or supernatural performance, in the sense they can do things at a much faster rate than nature can.
If they were the size of a car or an actual helicopter, they'd be moving at thousands of miles an hour. That's a recipe for disaster. But with these quadrotors, there is no contact, no crashes.
What you really need for that is a whole bunch of robots with sensors that are gathering this information, integrating it, and presenting it to you in a cohesive way.
So why build such a robot? The possibilities are practically limitless. With cameras on board, they've been used for search missions. They've also been used to get aerial shots for movies. They've tracked wildlife for conservation purposes. Their only limitation seems to be their tiny size.
They're small, agile, but there's a limit to what they can do by themselves. So designers turn to nature for some inspiration on collaboration. Believe it or not, ants have a lot more in common with these than you might expect.
Yes, the ant at least partly inspires the quadrotor design, because ants can lift huge loads. An ant can lift 50 times its own weight. That would be like me lifting a tractor trailer over my head. So imagine what happens when a team of ants tries to lift something together.
So here's a video of ants actually transporting a rigid object from point A to point B in their natural environment.
So they're not talking to each other by touching their antennas or anything like that. They're just They just know that there are other ants carrying it, so they kind of feel around and do the right thing, right?
Exactly. And you can also say that there's no perhaps centralized leader, like there's no one ant in charge.
The thinking is that if ants can work together to move something very heavy, then maybe quadrotors can do the same thing.
Ants don't actually talk to each other when they're carrying objects, but robots can.
And they can work together for all kinds of purposes. Check out what may be the first robot band. There's no telling what they're capable of. By 2050, they could be doing some very heavy lifting. Imagine what a team of these flying robots, built bigger with even more rotors, could do. It's possible that a construction crane like this could someday be replaced by a team of flying robots. We're learning so much every day. For these little guys, it's clear that in the future they'll keep going up, up, and up. Coming up on Earth 2050. I get up close with the Manta Rays' mechanical cousin. Oceans. They're the lifeblood of Earth, covering more than 70% of its surface. Even though we've been to the moon and to Mars, there are huge parts of the ocean that are completely unexplored. In fact, we know more about Mars than we do about the bottom of the ocean.
Let me put it this way. Recently, a submarine ran into a mountain because our maps weren't good enough.
The deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench, is incredibly 36,000 feet deep. To give you an idea of how far down that is, most airplanes fly at that altitude above the Earth. This Grand Canyon of the ocean is 120 times larger than the actual Grand Canyon. But because of the lack of light and deadly water pressure, very few people have been down that far.
There are many different environments in the water that are very difficult to explore, and harsh environments, very deep environments.
But scientists are determined to learn more about it. And by the year 2050, we might just be able to pull it off.
If I want to make a robot that goes into the surf zone where the waves are breaking, I don't copy something that's way out like a boat. I don't copy something that looks like a tank. I copy something that lives in the surf zone.
And here's what they came up with at the University of Virginia. Yeah, sure. Meet the Mantabot.
All right, it's time to get in, take a swim with the Manta Bot.
Why is this little guy called the Manta Bot? Because it's modeled after one of the ocean's most elegant swimmers, the Manta Ray. The flapping motion of the Manta Ray's fins makes it look like an underwater bird.
They really do look like they're flying. It captured my imagination, and it just basically sparked something that says we want to investigate this further.
And she's far from alone. The United States Navy wants to see if the Manta Ray can provide ideas for a new way to power what are called AUVs, automated underwater vehicles. Up until now, almost all have been powered by the screw propeller. But it's loud, and the vehicles that it powers aren't good at sitting still. The Mantabot is just the opposite.
The Manta-inspired vehicle would be very good in holding its position when there's a current or ocean waves or any other disturbance. And that's a real advantage over the current AUV technology.
So how did scientists and designers get from here to here? Well, they went directly to nature. Manta rays were caught and then x-rayed and CAT-scanned. They have incredibly intricate wings. The next thing they did was to build a computer model of the Manta ray's wing.
Once we understand how they produce their thrust from these fin motions, then the engineers can start to actually play with this and try and emulate it.
From the outside, the robotic wing looks almost like the real thing, but underneath the soft exterior, it's a different story. Inside is a complicated system of flexible metal threads and struts. When I was there, doctoral student Trevor Kemp put the Mantabot through a series of tests. My favorite happened when the lights went down and the lasers went up.
Why are we using lasers, and what are they doing?
Yeah, so if we shoot a grid of laser points onto the fin and you film it with a camera at an angle, you can then, from that, extract the 3D data of the fin's motions.
Which is a complicated way of saying that it provides valuable information that improves the wing. But of course, the ultimate test comes in the water.
How fast can it go?
Well, this can swim about as fast as an actual ray. If you compare their body size to be about the same.
It's so cool.
By the year 2050, we could find new sources of food and energy in the oceans. There may be hundreds or even thousands of undiscovered species living down there. And one day we could be living there too, but we need to better understand that environment. And the humble Mantabot, inspired by an animal that's been around for millions of years, is leading the way. Coming up on Earth 2050, I meet a robotic bird that's affecting a lot more than how we fly.
It literally flies just by flapping its wings exactly like the real model does.
It takes an awful lot of skill, training, and just plain guts to pilot these jets. But if you ask the men and women who fly them who are the best pilots in the world, almost all of them will say that honor is reserved for the world's oldest pilots. Birds. Could these veteran flyers affect how we live in 2050? The answer is yes. Birds have already taught us how to fly better and more efficiently. Almost all of the 10,000 species of birds can fly for hours using very little energy. And that inspired this piece of airplane design called the winglet. It saves thousands and thousands of gallons of fuel every single day.
We need to understand how animals move themselves, and by understanding how animals move themselves, we can create transportation for our own selves.
And that's why we've been fascinated with bird flight for centuries. 600 years ago, Leonardo da Vinci was obsessed with birds. He dissected them and made countless drawings trying to determine exactly how they flew. But he was never able to build one.
Here we go.
No one could.
History in the making. Going, that's all.
Until 2011. And this is it. It's called the Smart Bird.
You gotta remember, the people who are making robots are doing it because it's a ball. It's fun to make robots, especially if you can do something that no one else did.
I recently drove out into the California countryside to see the Smart Bird in action for myself.
Even up close, the Smart Bird almost seems alive. It's got a wingspan of over 6 feet, but it still weighs less than a pound. It's made of foam and carbon fiber. 2 years of engineering went into making this bird.
Why would you invent a robotic bird? There are jobs for robotic birds. There are companies out there that have radio-controlled flapping wing ornithopters. They look like big hawks, and their job is to fly around at the end of runways and scare other birds away from where the planes are taking off. So they're saving lives.
From a distance, you might think that it's one very large, very beautiful, very white bird.
What were the tweaks that you guys had to make?
First, we realized it's not just a flapping, it's also torsion by twisting, but then there is very intricate sensoring in there, meaning the wing has to be at a certain position and exactly at that time has to twist a certain way.
The Smartbird is just one of the mechanical animals made by the company. This flying manta ray, built to test wing design, is powered by helium. But these aren't toys. When we learn how animals do what they do and then make machines out of what we learned, we channel millions of years of evolution into products that are changing the future. It may sound strange, but this mechanical bird could actually change our lives in countless ways in the run-up to 2050. Almost anything that moves, from bicycles to cars to trains and even spaceships, could be improved by this simple machine. Maybe that's why they call it the Smartbird. Next on Earth 2050, snakes, or at least the mechanical versions, going where no man has gone before.
There's a lot of stuff that snake robots can do that we haven't even thought of yet. Welcome back to Earth 2050.
I could hardly believe it when I started looking into this, but in the last couple of years, scientists have created what you could call a zoo of mechanical animals. Believe it or not, the tiny hummingbird has a robotic cousin. So do gecko lizards, birds, even dragonflies. One company has developed a synthetic jellyfish as big as a car. All inspired by nature.
Nature is a good model because for 3.8 billion years in the process of evolution, a lot of different strategies have been tried. And some have been successful and some have failed. And the ones that exist are the success stories.
But what is it about a snake that inspires someone to develop a robotic twin? How do we go from this to this? Say hello to SnakeBot. It's the brainchild of students and professors at the Robotics Institute at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Professor Howie Chosit is one of SnakeBot's lead developers.
I've been working on these robots for 20 plus years now, and every time I see these robots move, first I blur my eyes a little bit and I think they're alive, but I've never gotten bored. I'm still mesmerized by watching our robots operate.
So why does the world need a snake robot? Well, it's because they don't have a rigid skeleton and they can get into places that we can never get to. They're a very agile animal, which means that they're a very agile robot. The Carnegie Mellon team studied the movements of living snakes, put what they learned into a computer, and then used that to create the first SnakeBot models.
When you look at a snake, you get all kinds of ideas of how am I supposed to move this? How is the snake actually moving? Basically, the snake gives you a real working system that you can always check back on.
Engineers call that system kinematics. They use it to take a snake from nature and create a mechanical version.
The kinematics is the study of motion. A robot is like the ultimate in terms of studying motion because we're able to command that motion.
And that's where SnakeBot has something that its natural counterpart doesn't. A human brain controlling it. Snakes don't naturally slither into dangerous places for the benefit of human beings. But these lightweight aluminum robots will do exactly that. So after an earthquake, a building collapse, even a nuclear disaster, SnakeBot can be on the scene. And as it gets perfected over the next 35 years, it will save many, many lives.
A snake robot can serve as a tool that can provide rescue workers some visualization capabilities that they otherwise wouldn't have access.
And SnakeBot is starting to save lives in the operating room. Tiny versions of the robot have been used to go inside the human body during surgery. It's a different kind of search and rescue mission. By the year 2050, could X-rays and CAT scans and MRIs be routinely replaced by small robotic snakes?
There's a lot of stuff that snake robots can do that we haven't even thought of yet.
One thing they have thought of is taking SnakeBot to Mars. it doesn't need oxygen, it isn't bothered by the cold, and it can explore for hours on battery power. Meanwhile, its cousin here on Earth will be where he's always been, close to the ground. For Snakebot, not even the sky is the limit. Think of how much we can learn in the future once we set this slithering robotic reptile loose on other planets.
Welcome back to Earth 2050. The robotic animals that we saw today were predicted decades ago by science fiction writers. But as we just saw, these days robots are getting out of sci-fi and into our lives.
Oftentimes I say, I don't know what the question is, but the answer is always robots. If you think about the year 2050, we'll see robots playing a more prominent role in society. I see robots working with humans, helping humans.
What no one predicted is that nature would play such a big role in the future of robots.
For example, when you see a gecko walk up a glass window, or the fish fin. Just something so simple and yet so brilliant in its application, you can't beat it.
There's all sorts of animals that might be used for future robots. As you'll see in the coming weeks, the robot revolution has just begun. For now, I'm Joe Penna, and thanks for watching Earth 2050. I'll see you next time.